They say the devil's in the details, but in my line of work, the devil's usually in the elevator shaft. I'm Eli Carter, 39 years old, and I've been fixing elevators in this rust bucket city for 15 years. I know every cable, every pulley, every safety mechanism in every building downtown. What I didn't know was that my wife Julia was using my expertise against me. It started with the lawyers. "Honey, I need to run upstairs real quick," Julia would say, checking her reflection in our bathroom mirror before work. "Legal needs me to sign something for the Henderson account." Then it was IT. "The system crashed again," she'd announce, grabbing her purse. "Mike in IT says it'll take 20 minutes to reset my access." Every damn day, something needed Julia's immediate attention on another floor. The woman who used to complain about walking to the mailbox was suddenly sprinting around that 15-story corporate maze like she was training for the Olympics. Julia worked in HR on the 8th floor of the Meridian building, the same building where I maintained the elevator systems. Convenient, right? She'd been there 3 years, ever since we moved to this dead-end city for her career advancement. My career advancement apparently involved crawling through elevator shafts and getting paid half what I made back in Detroit. The Meridian building was typical corporate glass and brick ugliness, filled with middle managers who thought their problems were more important than gravity itself. I'd get calls at 2 a.m. because some vice president was trapped between floors, only to find out they'd been pressing the wrong button for 20 minutes. But Julia loved it there. Loved the politics, the office gossip, the endless meetings about meetings. She'd come home talking about Tina from accounting and Rachel from marketing like they were characters in her favorite soap opera. "Tina's getting divorced," she'd say, pouring herself a glass of wine that cost more than my lunch. Caught her husband texting his secretary. "Rachel's seeing that new guy from legal," she'd continue. "You know, the one with the BMW. I'd nod and make appropriate sounds while watching the game, thinking about blown fuses and worn cables. Julia's office drama was background noise to me, like elevator music nobody asked for. But the elevator trips were getting ridiculous. 3, sometimes 4 times a day, Julia would disappear upstairs for various emergencies. She'd return 20 minutes later looking slightly flustered, hair a little messed up, claiming the lawyers were impossible to work with, or IT was completely incompetent. "Why don't they just email you the documents?" I asked one Tuesday night over dinner. Julia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "It's confidential stuff, Eli. They need wet signatures, original documents. You wouldn't understand the legal requirements." "Right. Because elevator technicians are too stupid to understand paper and pens. The thing about being married to someone for 8 years is you learn their tells." Julia had this way of touching her earring when she was lying, just a quick brush with her fingertips, like she was making sure it was still there. She'd done it when she told me about her promotion that came with a pay cut. She'd done it when she explained why we needed to move to this city where I knew nobody and had to start over. She was doing it now. "Must be some important documents," I said. "Very important." Touch. "The Henderson account is worth millions." I went back to my meatloaf, but something was gnawing at me. Julia had been different lately. More attention to her appearance, new clothes, expensive perfume that definitely wasn't from the drugstore. She'd started going to the gym, something she'd avoided for our entire marriage, and suddenly cared about thread counts and organic vegetables. Midlife crisis, I figured. Happens to everyone. But the elevator thing bothered me. See, I had access to the building's security systems. Part of my job was monitoring elevator usage, tracking maintenance needs, identifying patterns that might indicate equipment problems. The badge readers logged every entry and exit, time-stamped to the second. Thursday night, after Julia fell asleep watching some reality show about housewives, I pulled up the building's access logs on my laptop. Julia Carter, badge number 4471, 8th floor, HR department. I scrolled through her entries for the past month. Clock in at 8:15 a.m., various movements throughout the day, clock out at 5:30 p.m., normal pattern for a normal employee. But then I saw them. The anomalies, extra badge swipes, floor 14, legal department, Monday, 10:45 a.m., floor 14, duration 18 minutes. Tuesday, 2:20 p.m., floor 14, duration 22 minutes. Wednesday, 11:15 a.m., floor 14, duration 16 minutes. Thursday, 3:10 p.m., floor 14, duration 25 minutes. Every single day, Julia was spending 15 to 25 minutes on the 14th floor. The legal department she claimed was impossible to work with was seeing her more than her own HR team. I cross-referenced the legal department directory. 12 attorneys, 4 paralegals, 2 secretaries. I knew most of them by sight. Elevator small talk, you know how it is. But one name stood out. Trent Mallory, department head. badge 3301. I pulled up his access logs. Monday, 10:47 a.m., floor 14. Duration, 16 minutes. Tuesday, 2:22 p.m., floor 14. Duration, 20 minutes. And Wednesday, 11:17 a.m., floor 14. Duration, 14 minutes. Thursday, 3:12 p.m., floor 14. Duration, 23 minutes. Trent Mallory's badge was swiping into the 14th floor within 2 minutes of Julia's arrival, every single time. And he was leaving within 2 minutes of her departure. Every single time. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. Coincidence? Maybe. Legal emergencies requiring HR input? Possible. But then I remembered something Julia had said last week. That new department head is such an ass, she'd complained, refilling her wine glass. Trent something. Thinks he's God's gift to corporate law. Trent something. The same Trent whose badge was synchronized with hers like a Swiss watch. I scrolled back further. 6 weeks of data. The pattern was consistent, almost mathematical in its precision. Julia would badge into 14, Trent would follow within minutes, they'd both leave around the same time. But here's what really got my attention. Weekend entries. Saturday, October 14th. The Julia Carter, badge, subyear 4471. 2:14. PM entry, floor 14. I checked the company calendar, no meetings scheduled, no events. The building was supposed to be empty except for security. Julia had told me she was going shopping with Tina that Saturday. Came home 3 hours later with one small bag from Target and some story about how crowded the mall was. I pulled up Trent Mallory's weekend logs. Saturday, October 14th, Trent Mallory, badge number 3301. 2:16 p.m. entry, floor 14. 2 minutes after Julia, on a Saturday. In an empty building. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more weekend data. Saturday, September 30th. Julia 1:45 p.m., Trent 1:47 p.m. Saturday, September 16th. Julia 3:20 p.m., Trent 3:22 p.m. Saturday, September 2nd. Julia 2:55 p.m., Trent 2:57 p.m. Every other Saturday for the past 2 months, my wife and Trent Mallory were meeting in an empty office building. I closed the laptop and went to the kitchen, poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon, and stared out the window at our neighbor's house. The Hendersons, the same account Julia claimed required so much legal attention. Funny thing about the Hendersons. They'd moved to Florida 6 months ago. Friday morning, Julia was humming in the shower. Actually humming. My wife, who usually treated mornings like a personal insult from God, was singing some pop song I didn't recognize while shampooing her hair. "You're in a good mood," I said when she emerged, towel wrapped around her like she was posing for a magazine. "It's Friday," she said, but she was doing that earring thing again. "Looking forward to the weekend." "Any plans?" "Oh, errands, maybe lunch with the girls." The girls. Tina and Rachel, her office gossip squad. I wondered if they knew about her weekend meetings with Trent Mallory. Julia dressed carefully that morning. Black skirt that was definitely shorter than her usual work attire, silk blouse that showed just enough cleavage to be professional but interesting. She spent 20 minutes on her makeup, which was about 18 minutes longer than normal. "Hot date with the Henderson account?" I asked. She froze for just a second, lipstick halfway to her mouth. Very funny, Eli. But she wasn't laughing. I waited until Julia left for work, then called in sick. First time in 3 years, but I had some investigating to do. The Meridian Building security office was in the basement, next to the main electrical room where I spent most of my time. Daryl Washington ran security. 62 years old, former military police, sharp as a tack despite his retirement home exterior. "Eli," he said when I knocked on his door, "thought you were sick today." "Stomach bug," I said. "Feeling better. Mind if I check the elevator logs? Been getting some weird usage reports." Daryl waved me toward the computer terminal. "Help yourself. Coffee's fresh if you want some." I pulled up the building's security footage system. Every floor had cameras in the hallways, elevators, and common areas. The 14th floor had 4 cameras, one at the elevator bank, one at the main entrance, and one covering each wing of offices. I started with last Saturday, October 14th. 2:14 p.m. There was Julia stepping off the elevator onto the 14th floor. She looked around nervously, checked her phone, then walked toward the East Wing conference rooms. At 2:16 p.m., Trent Mallory emerged from the men's bathroom. Interesting timing. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with that silver at the temples look that middle-aged women apparently found irresistible. Expensive suit, confident walk, the kind of guy who'd never changed his own oil or fixed anything more complicated than a loose screw. He followed Julia toward the East Wing, and they both disappeared from camera range. I fast-forwarded to 3:45 p.m. Julia appeared first, walking quickly toward the elevators. Her hair was different, messier, like she'd been running her hands through it. Her lipstick was gone, and she was carrying her jacket instead of wearing it. Trent appeared 3 minutes later, straightening his tie. His shirt looked wrinkled, and there was definitely something smug about his expression. They took separate elevators down. "Find what you were looking for?" Daryl asked. I turned around. He was standing right behind me, coffee mug in hand, watching the screen with interest. "Maybe," I said. "You ever notice anything unusual about weekend building access?" Daryl sat down in the chair next to me. "Unusual how?" "People who shouldn't be here, unauthorized meetings, that sort of thing." "Eli," Daryl said slowly, "you asking as a building maintenance supervisor or as a husband?" I stared at him. "What makes you think—" "Son, I've been watching people for 40 years. Military, security, 3 kids of my own. I know the look of a man who's discovered something he wishes he hadn't." I was quiet for a long moment. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About your wife and Mallory? Couple months. None of my business, so I stayed out of it. But since you're asking—" Daryl pulled up a different screen, the building's after-hours access log. "They're not exactly subtle," he said. "Same pattern, same timing, same conference room. Room 1447, if you're curious. Has its own private entrance, soundproof for client confidentiality. Real convenient." "Soundproof?" "Oh yeah, lawyers love their privacy. But here's the thing about soundproof rooms. They still have ventilation systems. And ventilation systems have maintenance access." I looked at him. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything, just mentioning that the HVAC system for that room has been acting up lately. Might need some weekend maintenance attention." Daryl handed me a building schematic. Room 1447 was highlighted in yellow with detailed ventilation layouts and access points marked in red. "Hypothetically speaking," he said, "if someone needed to check the air circulation in that room, Saturday afternoon might be a good time, fewer people around to complain about the noise." I folded the schematic and put it in my pocket. "Daryl," I said, "if anyone asks—" "You were never here," he said, "and I never saw nothing." That afternoon, I went home and waited. Julia returned at 5:45, later than usual. "How was your day?" I asked. "Exhausting," she said, kicking off her heels. "Legal department was a nightmare. That Mallory guy had me running around all afternoon." Running around, right. "What kind of legal issues?" "Contract stuff, compliance reviews, really boring technical things." She was touching her earring again. "Must be important if it's keeping you so busy." "Very important," she said. "Actually, I might have to go in tomorrow for a few hours. Some documents came in that need immediate attention." "Tomorrow, Saturday." "Want me to come with you? I could check on the elevator maintenance while you're working." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. "I mean, it's just a quick thing. No point in both of us wasting our Saturday." That night, Julia took a long bath, used her expensive body lotion, and went to bed early. She set her alarm for 11:30 a.m., late for Julia, who was usually up by 8 on weekends. I lay next to her, listening to her breathe, thinking about ventilation systems and soundproof conference rooms. At midnight, I got up and went to my workshop in the garage. I had some equipment to prepare. Saturday morning, Julia was nervous. She spilled her coffee, changed clothes twice, and kept checking her phone like she was expecting important news. "What time do you think you'll be back?" I asked, reading the sports section like this was just another weekend. "Hard to say. Could be a couple hours, could be longer. Depends on how complicated the documents are." She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Navy blue, fitted, definitely not her usual weekend attire. "Need me to pick up anything while you're gone?" "No, I'm good. Might grab lunch out, so don't wait for me." Julia left at 1:30, claiming she wanted to get there early and get organized. I watched from our bedroom window as she drove away in her Honda Civic, checking her reflection in the rearview mirror one last time. I waited 15 minutes, then loaded my equipment into my truck. The Meridian building on Saturday afternoon was like a corporate graveyard. Empty parking lot except for security and a few scattered cars belonging to people who apparently had no life outside the office. I parked in the maintenance area and used my key card to enter through the service entrance. Daryl was at his desk, reading a paperback novel. "Afternoon, Eli," he said without looking up. "Come to check on that ventilation problem?" "That's the plan." "Room 14147's been occupied for about 20 minutes now. Might want to give them time to settle in." I took the service elevator to the 14th floor, carrying my toolbox and a small digital recorder I'd borrowed from my nephew's school project. The hallway was empty, silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of the building's HVAC system. Room 1447 was at the end of the east wing, exactly where the schematic indicated. The door was closed, but I could see light underneath. The ventilation access panel was around the corner, hidden in an alcove designed for maintenance equipment. I opened my toolbox, pulled out my screwdriver, and removed the panel cover. The ductwork was standard commercial grade, large enough for airflow, too small for a person, but perfect for sound transmission. I attached the recorder to a small cable and fed it through the duct toward the conference room. What I heard made my stomach turn. "Can't keep doing this forever," Julia was saying. "Eli's getting suspicious." "Eli's an elevator repairman," Trent's voice responded. "He fixes things that go up and down. He's not exactly criminal mastermind material." They both laughed. "Still," Julia said, "maybe we should be more careful. Find somewhere else to meet." "Why? This is perfect. Private, convenient, and your husband maintains the building's security. It's like having inside information." "I just worry." "Julia, relax. Your husband spends his days in elevator shafts talking to cables. He's not going to figure out anything more complicated than which button makes the doors open." More laughter. "You're terrible," Julia said, but she sounded pleased. "You love it. Besides, in 6 months this won't matter anyway." "What do you mean?" "I'm getting the promotion to regional counsel. Charlotte office. Better pay, better position, better everything. You could come with me." "Trent, I can't just—" "Why not? What's keeping you here? Your thrilling career in HR? Your brilliant husband who thinks reading elevator manuals counts as intellectual stimulation?" There was a pause, then the sound of movement, fabric rustling. "We could have a real life together," Trent continued. "No more sneaking around, no more weekend meetings in conference rooms. I could take care of you properly." "What about Eli?" "What about him? File for divorce, take half his stuff, and move on. It's not like you're happy with him anyway." "I'm not unhappy." "Julia, when's the last time he surprised you? Took you somewhere nice? Made you feel like a woman instead of a roommate?" Another pause. "He's a good man," Julia said quietly. "Good men finish last. You deserve better than good. You deserve everything." I heard kissing sounds, then Julia giggling like a teenager. "You're so bad for me," she said. "I'm the best thing that ever happened to you." The conversation devolved into sounds I didn't want to hear. I retrieved my recorder, replaced the ventilation panel, and got the hell out of there. In the parking garage, I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, listening to the recording again. My wife of 8 years, talking about me like I was some kind of trained monkey who existed solely to maintain her comfortable lifestyle. Your husband spends his days in elevator shafts talking to cables. Reading elevator manuals counts as intellectual stimulation. It's not like you're happy with him anyway. I thought about our wedding day, Julia in her white dress, promising to love and honor and cherish. I thought about the house we'd bought together, the dreams we'd shared, the life we'd built. Then I thought about Trent Mallory's smug voice. He's not exactly criminal mastermind material. We'd see about that. I drove home and spent the rest of Saturday in my workshop planning. Julia returned at 6:30, claiming the legal work had been more complicated than expected. "How was your afternoon?" she asked, kissing my cheek like nothing had changed. "Quiet," I said. "Watched some TV, read a little." "What were you reading?" I looked at her, my wife, my partner, the woman who'd been lying to me for months while screwing her boss in a soundproof conference room. "Technical manual," I said. "You wouldn't find it interesting." She smiled and went to take a shower, probably washing off the scent of her afternoon activities. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the digital recorder, thinking about elevator shafts and cables and all the things Julia thought I was too stupid to understand. Time to get an education. Sunday morning, Julia slept until noon. She claimed she was exhausted from yesterday's work. But I knew the real reason. Guilt and good sex will wear anyone out. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, building a timeline. Every badge swipe, every weekend meeting, every emergency that had taken Julia away from her actual job and into Trent Mallory's arms. The pattern was beautiful in its stupidity. They'd been meeting for 3 months, always the same day of the week, always the same time, always the same room. If I'd been planning an affair, I'd have at least mixed up the schedule. But then again, I wasn't arrogant enough to think my spouse was too stupid to notice. Julia wandered into the kitchen around 12:30, wearing one of my old t-shirts and looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "Morning," she mumbled, pouring coffee with shaking hands. "Rough night?" I asked. "Didn't sleep well. Too much on my mind?" "I bet." "Work stuff?" "Yeah, This Henderson account is really complicated. The Henderson account that didn't exist for the clients who'd moved to Florida 6 months ago. Julia was either a pathological liar or she thought I was genuinely stupid. Maybe both. Want to talk about it? It's boring legal stuff, Eli. Contract disputes, compliance issues, nothing you'd be interested in. There it was again. The assumption that I was too dumb to understand her sophisticated white-collar world. Try me, I said. Julia looked at me like I'd suggested we discuss quantum physics. It's really complicated, she said slowly, like she was talking to a child. Lots of technical legal language. I can handle technical language. I read schematics, wiring diagrams, safety protocols. How different can legal contracts be? Very different, Julia said quickly. Completely different. Totally unrelated skill sets. She was getting flustered, touching her earring, avoiding eye contact. Maybe I could help, I pressed. Fresh perspective, you know? No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I mean, it's confidential. Client privilege. I can't discuss details with anyone outside the company. Even your husband? Especially my husband. That's how confidentiality works, Eli. Right. Confidentiality. Like the confidential sounds I'd recorded yesterday afternoon. I spent Sunday researching corporate policies, employment law, and building security protocols. The Meridian building had strict rules about after-hours access, personal use of company facilities, and relationships between employees in supervisory positions. Trent Mallory was Julia's supervisor. Not directly, he ran legal, she worked in HR, but he was 2 pay grades above her and had influence over her department's budget and staffing decisions. According to the employee handbook, personal relationships between supervisors and subordinates had to be disclosed to human resources within 30 days. Failure to disclose could result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Unauthorized use of company facilities for personal activities was grounds for immediate dismissal. Falsifying time records, claiming to work when actually engaged in personal activities, was considered theft of company resources. I had badge logs proving unauthorized weekend access. I had security footage showing them entering and leaving the same conference room. I had audio recordings of them discussing their relationship and mocking the company's policies. In legal terms, I had them dead to rights. But I wanted more than just getting them fired. I wanted them to understand what it felt like to be underestimated, dismissed, and betrayed by someone they trusted. Monday morning, Julia left for work in another new outfit. Red blouse, black skirt, heels that clicked against our hardwood floor like a countdown timer. Big day today? I asked. Same as always, she said, but she was practically glowing with anticipation. More Henderson account emergencies? Probably. That account never seems to calm down. I watched her drive away, then called Daryl. Morning, Eli. How'd that ventilation maintenance go? Very educational. Think you could do me a favor? Depends on the favor. I need copies of all security footage from the 14th floor, dating back 3 months, and I need the building's employee handbook, specifically the sections on workplace relationships and facility usage. That's a pretty big favor. It's also a pretty big problem, the kind that could make the company liable for sexual harassment, hostile work environment, misuse of corporate resources. Daryl was quiet for a moment. You planning to burn the whole building down, Eli? Just 2 floors, and only the people who deserve it. Give me until Wednesday. I'll have everything you need. Tuesday, Julia came home late again, claiming crisis management with the legal department. She was humming in the shower, singing while she cooked dinner, practically floating around the house like a woman in love, which I suppose she was, just not with me. You seem happy, I said over dinner. It's been a good week. Work's going well. I feel like I'm finally making a real contribution to the company. Contributing something anyway. The legal department must really value your input. They do. Trent, Mr. Mallory, says I have excellent instincts for complex situations. I bet he does. He seems like a smart guy. Very smart. Harvard Law, 15 years of corporate experience. He's going places. What kind of places? Julia paused, fork halfway to her mouth. Career advancement. Bigger cases, better positions. The usual corporate ladder climbing. Here in town? Well, no, probably Charlotte eventually. Better opportunities there. Charlotte, just like Trent had mentioned in their conference room conversation. That's too bad, I said. You'll miss working with him. Yeah, Julia said softly. I will. Wednesday morning, Daryl handed me a manila envelope thick enough to choke a horse. Everything you asked for, he said. Security footage, badge logs, employee handbook, building access policies. Also threw in some photos from the hallway cameras, just in case you need visual evidence. I opened the envelope and looked at the photos. Julia and Trent entering the conference room, leaving separately, meeting in the elevator, walking together toward the parking garage. "Daryl," I said, "you ever think about a career in private investigation?" "Too old to start over, but I appreciate the compliment." "One more favor? You're pushing your luck, son. I need to know who to contact about filing a formal complaint, someone high enough up the corporate ladder to take this seriously." Daryl pulled out a business card. "Margaret Chen, Vice President of Human Resources. She's the one who hired your wife, and she's the one who can fire her. Fair warning, though, she doesn't mess around. You give her evidence like this, she'll move fast and she'll move hard." "Good," I said. "It's time someone around here moved fast." That evening, Julia announced she'd be working late again Thursday. "More Henderson account issues?" I asked. "Actually, it's a new case. Really big client, very sensitive, might require some weekend work too." "This weekend?" "Possibly. I'll know more tomorrow." I nodded and went back to my newspaper, but I was thinking about manila envelopes and vice presidents and the look on Julia's face when she realized her elevator repairman husband wasn't quite as stupid as she'd assumed. Thursday was going to be very interesting. Thursday morning, I woke up early and made copies of everything. Security footage on 3 separate flash drives, audio recordings backed up to my laptop and phone, badge logs printed and highlighted, employee handbook sections bookmarked and annotated. I called in sick again, second time in 3 years, but this was definitely a special occasion. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, I walked into the Meridian Building's executive offices on the 15th floor, wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase I'd borrowed from my neighbor. "I'd like to see Margaret Chen," I told the receptionist. "It's regarding a serious policy violation that requires immediate attention." The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a skeptical expression, looked me up and down like I was selling vacuum cleaners. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have evidence of employee misconduct that could expose the company to significant legal liability. I think Ms. Chen would want to see this as soon as possible." 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Margaret Chen in her corner office, watching her review my documentation with the focused intensity of a surgeon examining x-rays. Margaret Chen was exactly what you'd expect from a corporate VP. Mid-50s, sharp suit, silver hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, and eyes that could cut glass. She'd built her career in an industry that didn't make things easy for women, and it showed in every gesture. "Mr. Carter," she said, looking up from the badge logs, "these are very serious allegations." "Yes, ma'am." "You're alleging that your wife, Julia Carter, and Trent Mallory have been conducting an unauthorized personal relationship using company facilities, falsifying time records, and violating our disclosure policies." "That's correct." She picked up one of the security photos, Julia and Trent entering the conference room together. "And you obtained this evidence through your position as building maintenance supervisor?" "I obtained it through legitimate building security protocols. Everything in that folder came from official company records and authorized surveillance systems." Margaret Chen smiled for the first time since I'd entered her office. It wasn't a warm smile. "Mr. Carter, in my 25 years of corporate human resources, I've seen every kind of workplace misconduct imaginable. Sexual harassment, embezzlement, fraud, theft. But I've never seen someone document their own violations quite this thoroughly." She held up the audio transcript. "Your husband spends his days in elevator shafts talking to cables. He's not exactly criminal mastermind material." She looked at me over her reading glasses. "I assume this is Mr. Mallory's voice." "Yes, ma'am. Charming man, real people person." She flipped to another page. "Reading elevator manuals counts as intellectual stimulation. Did he really say that?" "Saturday afternoon, October 21st, approximately 3:15 p.m. in conference room 1447, which they accessed using falsified work orders and unauthorized badge privileges." "Correct." Margaret Chen closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Carter, what outcome are you seeking here?" "I want them fired, both of them, and I want it done by the book, so there's no chance of wrongful termination lawsuits or unemployment claims." "That's exactly what's going to happen. But I need you to understand something. Once I initiate this investigation, there's no going back. Your wife will lose her job, her benefits, her professional references. Mr. Mallory will lose his position, his advancement opportunities, and quite possibly his law license if the state bar decides to review his conduct." "I understand. Do you? Because in about 4 hours, your marriage is going to explode. Your wife is going to know that you've been investigating her, recording her, and documenting her every move. She's going to be hurt, angry, and probably vindictive." I thought about Julia's laughter in that conference room, the casual cruelty in her voice when she talked about our life together. "Ms. Chen," I said, "my marriage exploded 3 months ago. I just didn't know it yet." She nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Give me until 2 p.m. I'll need time to coordinate with legal, security, and Mr. Mallory's supervisor. This needs to be handled simultaneously to prevent any coordination between them. What do you need from me?" "Nothing. Go home, Mr. Carter. Let me handle this professionally." I stood up and shook her hand. "Ms. Chen, thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Thank me next week when you're still glad you did this." I went home and waited. At 2:30 p.m., my phone rang. "Eli?" Julia's voice was shaking. "Something's happened at work. I need to come home." "What kind of something?" "I can't talk about it over the phone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 15, driving like she was fleeing a crime scene. Her face was pale, her hands were trembling, and she looked like she'd been crying. "They fired me," she said, standing in our living room like she didn't know where to sit down. "What? Why?" "Policy violations. Unauthorized building access, falsified time records, undisclosed relationships with supervisory personnel." I tried to look shocked. "That sounds serious." "They had everything, Eli. Badge logs, security photos, even audio recordings of private conversations. Someone's been investigating me for months." "Who would do that?" Julia looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Part fear, part realization, part something that might have been respect. "Someone smarter than I gave them credit for," she said quietly. We stared at each other across our living room. 8 years of marriage hanging in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About Trent? Couple of weeks. About the lies, the fake emergencies, the weekend meetings? Long enough." "Are you going to say something? Yell at me, throw things, demand an explanation?" I sat down in my recliner, the same chair where I'd spent countless evenings listening to her talk about office gossip and Henderson accounts that didn't exist. "What's to explain, Julia? You fell in love with someone else. It happens." "That's it? That's all you have to say?" "What would you like me to say? That I'm surprised?" "I'm not." "That I'm hurt?" "I am." "That I'm angry?" "Absolutely. But mostly I'm disappointed." "Disappointed?" "In your opinion of me. In your assumption that I was too stupid to figure it out. In your willingness to throw away 8 years for some middle-aged lawyer who talks about you like you're a conquest." Julia sat down on the couch, finally crying openly. "I didn't mean for it to happen. But it did happen. For 3 months, it happened. Every weekend, every fake emergency, every lie about Henderson accounts and IT problems." "How did you know?" "I know everything that happens in that building, Julia. Every badge swipe, every elevator trip, every conference room booking. It's my job to know." You thought I was just the elevator guy. Too simple to understand your sophisticated corporate world. Too trusting to question your stories. Too stupid to put the pieces together." She was quiet for a long moment. "What happens now?" she asked. I pulled out the divorce papers I'd had prepared 3 days ago. "Now you sign these, pack your things, and figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life, preferably somewhere that doesn't include me." Julia looked at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "Eli, maybe we can work this out. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever it takes." "Work what out, Julia? You don't love me? You haven't loved me for months, maybe years. You love Trent Mallory and his promises about Charlotte and better opportunities and a life that doesn't include an elevator repairman who reads technical manuals? That's exactly what it is. And you know what? That's fine. You deserve to be happy, and if Trent Mallory makes you happy, then go be happy with him." "They fired him too." I tried to look surprised. "Really?" "Same violations, same evidence. His wife found out, his kids found out, his law firm is reviewing his partnership status." "That's unfortunate." Is it? Is it really unfortunate, Eli, or is it exactly what you wanted to happen?" I looked at my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, sitting on our couch in her expensive clothes, crying about consequences she'd never bothered to consider. "Julia," I said, "I wanted my wife to love me enough not to screw her boss in a conference room every Saturday afternoon. Everything else is just details." She signed the papers. Julia moved out on Sunday. She took half the furniture, most of the wedding gifts, and all of the kitchen appliances that cost more than my monthly truck payment. She left behind 8 years of shared memories and a forwarding address in Charlotte, North Carolina. Apparently she and Trent had decided to start over together. New city, new opportunities, new life built on the ashes of their old ones. I helped her load boxes into a rental truck, making small talk like we were casual acquaintances instead of two people who'd promised to love each other until death do us part. "You'll be okay?" she asked, standing in our empty living room. "I'll be fine. I mean financially. The house, the bills, everything. I managed before I met you, Julia. I'll manage after." She nodded, looking around at the space we'd shared, the walls we'd painted together, the life we'd built that apparently wasn't enough for her. "For what it's worth," she said, "I am sorry. About the lying, the sneaking around, the things I said about you. I know. Do you hate me?" I thought about that question for a long moment. Did I hate her? The woman who'd shared my bed while planning a future with someone else? The woman who'd mocked my intelligence while using my building access to facilitate her affair? The woman who'd thrown away our marriage for a man who saw her as a convenient distraction? "No," I said finally. "I don't hate you. I'm disappointed in you, and I'm angry about how you handled things, but I don't hate you. Thank you for that. Don't thank me for it. Thank yourself. You're the one who decided our marriage wasn't worth an honest conversation about being unhappy." Julia picked up the last box, photo albums and personal items she'd decided she couldn't leave behind. "Goodbye, Eli." "Goodbye, Julia." She walked out of our house and out of my life, driving toward a future in Charlotte with a man who'd lost his job, his family, and his professional reputation for the privilege of starting over with someone else's wife. I stood in my empty living room for a while, listening to the silence, thinking about elevator shafts and cable tensions and the difference between things that can be fixed and things that are broken beyond repair. Monday morning, I went back to work. Same building, same elevators, same routine, but everything felt different now. The 14th floor was just another floor, conference room 447 was just another room, and the badge access logs were just data instead of evidence of betrayal. "How you doing, Eli?" Daryl asked when I stopped by the security office. Better than expected." "Good to hear. Coffee?" "Sure." We sat in Daryl's office, sipping coffee, discussing new security policies, stricter access controls, conference room cameras. "Building's quieter lately," he noted. "Peaceful is good," I replied. Tuesday, Margaret Chen summoned me. "Your evidence was exemplary," she said. "We're overhauling protocols and offering you Assistant Director of Building Operations." I accepted, starting Monday. Friday, Tina confessed the office knew about Julia and Trent. "We thought you didn't care." I packed 15 years of tools into boxes, ready for change. Saturday, Julia called from Charlotte. "I'm sorry. I underestimated you." I forgave her, for my sake, and said goodbye forever. Monday, in my corner office, my first client arrived, David Henderson, suspecting his wife's affair. I smiled. "Tell me about her schedule."